Good evening, everyone. This is our Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, and Calexico Financing Authority regular meeting. Agenda. It is Wednesday, October 21st, and it is 5:35. Okay.
Due to the declaration of emergency, this meeting is being held pursuant to authorization from the governor's executive orders. Some or all of city council members may participate in this meeting by teleconference as authorized by Executive Order N29-20, issued by the Governor of California on March 17, 2020. Until further notice, there will be no public access to city council meetings. However, public participation is available in the following ways. Members of the public are encouraged to watch the open session portion of the meeting via live stream at 6:30 p.m. at www.communityspectrum.org or via the City Hall Facebook page. You may also join us via Zoom. The information to join is part of the agenda package, or you may join by calling one of the numbers through Zoom also mentioned in the current agenda. Members of the public will be able to make public comments in the following ways. You may submit your public comments via email by 4 p.m. on Wednesday, October 21 to ggarcia@calexico.ca.gov. These comments will be read aloud during the meeting. You can also make public comments live via Zoom by submitting a request via Zoom chat. Persons who submit name and section of the agenda they wish to speak on, such as public comments, or you may state the number of the item that you wish to speak on. Thank you.
Do we have any public comments at this time?
No public comments at this time.
Okay. So this meeting will be adjourned to closed session. Can we roll call?
Mayor Arriola Fernandez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryson. Here. Councilmember Pacheco is absent. Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Hodge.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay, now this meeting is being adjourned for closed session. We're ready to start our city council, Calexico Redevelopment Successory Agency, and Calexico Finance Authority regular session agenda, and it's 6:35. Can we have roll call?
Mayor Arriola Fernandez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryson. Here. Councilmember Pacheco.
Here.
Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Hodge.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance.
Right hand over your heart, ready, begin.
Mr. Rison, our mission statement.
Together, we pledge to provide
effective and efficient in a courteous and respectful manner to improve the quality of life for all in our unique border community. Viva Calexico.
Father, thank you for every seat that has been filled here today, for each mind and heart that feels the presence of this room. We thank you. Only you truly know what we are setting out to accomplish today. We have an idea, a vision, hints, and daily instructions. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you could see in perfect detail the end of every beginning. Every project, every season, every life, nothing is ever in vain, for even mistakes and missteps are used for good. In the name of the Lord, amen. Closed session announcement.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, City Council. City Council meeting closed session on the two items described on this evening's agenda. 1 and 2 received direction, but no reportable actions were taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to accept the agenda.
Mayor Adriana Fernandez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Hodge.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item 3, Measure Q presentation by Calexico Unified School District.
Sleeves, Mr. Gonzalez, roll up them sleeves.
Testing. Alrighty, so first of all, good evening, council members. Good evening, community as well. My name is Carlos Gonzalez. I'm the superintendent for the Calexico Unified School District. And so I want to thank you, first of all, for your time and allowing us to give a brief presentation on Measure Q and what it is. And I love your mission statement in regards to developing the community, and that's one of our messages as well as the district. So on behalf of our administration, our staff, and our school board, I'd like to give a presentation on Measure Q to the city. And first of all, as members that you all are of the community, I'd like to first of all thank you for the support that you give to our district. And so as members of the community and voters as well, there's been many measures that have passed, and that has been as a support of members of the community and members like you as well. So first of all, what is Measure Q? So Measure Q is a general obligation bond, and so it will be on the ballot on November the 3rd, 2020. The ballot is worth $47 million, and if it's successful, you know, it will accomplish several things at Calexico High School. One of them is a new multi-purpose room and cafeteria. Another project it will be able to complete is a new student services and administration building. 2 new STEAM buildings, a total of 16 extra large classrooms. 2 new physical education multi-use field house. A new shower and locker room building with 700 new lockers. A renovation of Godfrey and Varner Gym, the shower and the locker room areas, and then also a new permanent shade structure. So I know that a lot of the questions that come up, and part of me being here is wanting to give you information, because as members of the community as well, you may have some of these questions yourself, or you may be approached by some members of the community with these specific questions. So I want to be able to give you the information. So one of the questions that is asked is, how much will Measure Q cost? So Measure Q's average annual tax rate is estimated to be less than 6 cents per $100 of average assessed valuation. And so we kind of put an example just to try to put it in perspective. So for example, if a property is assessed at $200,000, then that would equal to $120 per year, which comes out to about $10 per month. And I think one of the important things to also mention is that there is a difference between assessed property value and fair market value. Fair market value is what you can sell a home for. The property assessed value is what you get assessed for your taxes, which is usually a lot less than the fair market value. Some of the key points that are important for the community to also know is that if successful, Measure Q will help restore the local economy by creating hundreds of local jobs, similar to like Measure V has done. So it does help the community, and I know that is a question that comes up. What is it that, how is it that Measure Q is going to help the community as a whole? this is one of the ways by creating local jobs. Two, the price of material supplies and overall labor cost is cheaper right now, and that's just a fact. If you go out to build anything at this point, the cost of it has substantially been less. So we want to take advantage of that as well. Number three, Measure Q comes with significant taxpayer protections. And so I do want to introduce Mr. Ben Horton, which is here with me in the audience. And so he is part of the Measure V Oversight Committee. And also, he's also part of the Measure Q Oversight Committee. And so why are these committees very important? You know, the board approves this. It's a committee that's brought together, and it's made up of the community. And the community, then they have oversight of the budget and the projects as they're being built. And so we also have an independent annual audit that is performed by a third audit company. So they come in and make sure that we're spending, you know, the budget or the money as it should be. As again, the oversight committee is reviewing it, and it goes to the board as well. And then funds are prohibited from being used for administrator salaries, pensions, or benefits. It's only for the purpose of the construction projects. So another question comes up is, why is Measure Q needed? You know, one of the important things that we want to make sure that everyone understands is the state does not provide sufficient funding for repairing facilities and updating technology. You know, similar to projects that, you know, are undergone by the city. You know, the state doesn't provide all the funding for everything that needs to get done. So Measure Q will allow the district to fund critical classroom and technology improvements to provide our children with the skills needed to compete in a modern world. One of the other key points that's important to understand is, you know, if successful, Measure Q, if funded, the projects will allow the district to submit for state reimbursement to the state facilities program and get in line for future state funding, similar to what we have in Measure V. So why is this important? You need to be able to go for a bond and get it. Once there's construction that is done, then what we can do is then we can apply for reimbursement. Usually the reimbursement that we qualify for is between 50 and 60 cents per dollar. Why is that important again? Because any future state reimbursements that we received will be utilized for either modernization or to build new schools in Calexico. Now, the money for reimbursement isn't there at the state level right now. However, when there are major bonds that are passed by the state, then we're able to be in line to make sure that we get reimbursement for any of these projects. And so it will benefit us down the line as a whole. So trying to, you know, put an image, an idea of what are some of the projects that we're looking at in Measure Q. I'm a very proud product of Calexico, and I attended all schools in Calexico, since preschool at Jefferson to dual school, De Anza, and Calexico High School. And so if you've been to Calexico High School, you know, the cafeteria has not changed much. In fact, it was built in 1953, and students actually went in 1954. So when Calexico High School was built, there was really only, I believe, 4 wings of classrooms and the cafeteria. So that cafeteria can barely hold 300 students in there. And so when you think about time and you think about where we're at now, you know, and what we're trying to accomplish to bring in the 9th grade students to Calexico High School, you know, one, even with our current students at Calexico High School, we can't fit them in our current facility. And then when we want to bring the 9th grade over to make it a true high school, 9th through 12th grade high school, you know, you can just imagine that there's no way that that can happen. So one of the main things that we're proposing is to knock down completely that cafeteria, which is a little less than 4,000 square feet, and build a true multi-purpose room cafeteria for our students. State of the art. It will be a 2-story building over 20,000 square feet, and it will be able to house our students inside. As you know, we live in extreme weather here. It's either cold, or when it rains, sometimes it really rains, and it's hot. We all know that. And so we want to make sure that we have a facility that protects our students from the elements that we know can be, very dangerous here in Calexico. A part of that is the multipurpose room is going to also serve as an event center. We don't have a facility right now where we can house, and invite the community. If we have a performance, or we have a presentation, or we have whatever it is that we want to present, that we can house that many, unless we use a gym, but it's not the same. And so this is going to be an amazing, beautiful, state-of-the-art, multi-purpose room for our students that really is long overdue. And so again, if you went to yourselves to Calexico High School, your children went to Calexico High School, you know that that facility is incredibly small for the size of the high school now and what we would like to propose as well. So again, this is one of the main premier, changes that will take place at Calexico High School. The other thing that we want to make sure that we have in place is a student services building. That is a true student services building. Not that we have services scattered all over campus, because we don't have one central location that we can have them, but we want to create a student services building, an environment where whatever service it is that they need, that they go to one location, one place, to seek any of those services that they need. And so this is also a critical component. There's a picture of when the high school was built in 1954. And if you stand in the same location where that picture was taken, the high school looks the same. However, it looks to the point where you can tell that it needs to be fixed up. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for it to get updated. So this is one of the other central focal points that we have. If you've driven by Calexico High School recently, you can see that parking lot is actually there in place right now. And it is a beautiful, parking lot. And what we're trying to do is continue with the projects at Calexico High School and the student services building, and then administration as well, to provide one location again for all of our students. So the STEAM labs, we want to work on building two large, two-story classrooms. Each of the classroom wings would contain 8 classrooms. And so the focus would be STEAM. And so you've probably heard STEAM all over the place, right? It's the buzzword. You hear about it a lot in colleges and universities. And so how are we preparing our students for STEAM? And for STEAM, stands for, science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics, right? And those are all the components. That's what, the 21st century is driving us to, right? You need to make sure that you have all these components in place, all these concepts that the students understand. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that we have the environment for them to provide a true STEAM opportunity. What does that mean? Well, let me give you a perfect example. We have programs at Calexico High School that are phenomenal. We have teachers that are incredible. We have students that are just amazing in regards to what they are capable of doing. However, we don't have the facilities to give them. For example, if you were to go to any other maybe county or larger district, you'd have unbelievable facilities for them to be able to make sure that STEAM was in place. Let me give you one example: robotics. Robotics is unbelievable. We have, like I mentioned, incredible teachers, staff, students, but they have no place in order for them to be able to truly have a 21st century robotics type environment. These classrooms are going to be oversized. They're going to be up to 1,500 square feet. So you can just imagine, a regular classroom is about 940 square feet. 1,500 square feet, now we're looking at truly oversized classrooms. full of, capable for, labs, for science, for art, for engineering, which again, we want to make sure that we provide these opportunities for our students. So the STEAM labs, we're looking at 2 buildings, each building being 2-story and having 8 classrooms for a total of 16 classrooms at Calexico High School. Okay. So I started off by thanking the council, and I re-thank the council again and the community as well that is here and that is watching. And the reason is 2016 that there was a measure or a bond that was passed called Measure V. And we've been working hard to make sure that whatever it is that we promised, that we make sure that we deliver. And I want to talk a little bit about some of those Measure V projects that we have promised and on which ones are the ones that we are delivering. And the reason for that is, as the community, you need to know, because you may be asked questions. Hey, wasn't there a bond that was passed, Measure V? Whatever became of that bond, what did we get for it? Well, let me show you some of the things that we have been able to accomplish for our students with this bond. So one of the first things that we've been able to work on, or the many things through Measure V, is a culinary arts modernization project. And so this is a whole wing at Calexico High School. And so the one picture doesn't do it true justice. However, I can tell you this is a 4,000 square foot updated state-of-the-art culinary kitchen. And I'm going to say it's the best one in the Imperial County. And I'm going to say it's probably one of the best ones in the entire state. If you take a tour, which we invite the council to take a tour, the students have all the state-of-the-art equipment in place that they need in order for them to be able to do their CTE pathway. So when they graduate from Calexico High School, would actually be able to move on and be able to get into a culinary arts program at a technical school. And so Chef Nunez, if you know him, he's an amazing chef. It's a blessing to have him at Calexico High School. He has done incredible things with our students. Just like the robotics, like I mentioned, we have incredible staff that does amazing things with our students. He's been able to win and take our students to state competitions, not only state competitions, but national competitions as well. And so what this is going to allow him to do now is give him true 21st century equipment and put it in the hands of our students. And now as they turn around and compete, they'll be able to not only represent us because they've practiced in 21st century equipment, but now they can invite competition, which is going to allow other districts to be able to come down and compete in our state-of-the-art facility here in Calexico. Again, if you have driven by Calexico High School, you're going to notice that there is this huge building in front of the campus. Beautiful building. This is a 16 classroom building, brand new. The outside looks beautiful. The inside, I can tell you, looks even 10 times greater. It's a beautiful building with oversized classrooms. The inside is very technology driven. Each of the classrooms has screens. They have different types of seating arrangements. The cabinetry around allows for the teacher to be able to give instruction. There's actually teacher centers as well located inside as well. But this again is going to and beginning to give us that additional space at Calexico High School that we need. And I do want to invite the council and invite the community for a virtual tour that's going to take place next Tuesday, the 27th at 9 a.m. So we will be putting that one out to the community. I'll send the link to the council as well. Obviously, as you know, we're still in a pandemic, so the physical, grand openings are not something that we can do, but we're going to highlight this building. And again, this is just another example of the promises that were made to the community, and how they're being kept. And this is a view of the parking lot. If you have driven by, it complements the 16 classroom building very well. And so as you remember before, there was a circle, the circle drive. And so it's more like an oval, not so much a circle. But one of the much needed things that we have had at Calexico High School is the need for parking. So this parking that was added, we've added 54 additional parkings to Calexico High School, which will serve us very well, and our parents as well as they go to Calexico High School, and if they have appointments, you know, they'll be able to quickly be able to find a spot to park and you know, seek the services that they need. And so what we do as a community, you know, is a legacy, you know, that we are going to ensure that we pass on to our students, which is all of the youth here in Calexico. And one of the things that I've mentioned is it doesn't matter where you live in Calexico. If you live on the north side of Calexico, south side of Calexico, east side of Calexico, or west side of Calexico, every single student youth will benefit from this project because there is only one high school that they all attend to. So this is a great opportunity to give them the best, to give them state-of-the-art facilities. I know that we're dealing and we're in a pandemic. I know things are difficult. You know, I have a lot of faith that we will get through this pandemic. And when we do get through it, we want to make sure that we have facilities like this that are waiting for our students, and that we continue to work for what is the best for every single one of our students, children in Calexico. So we are very much in line with the mission statement of the city of Calexico. And so again, thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to give this presentation on the Measure Q and just some information on what it's about. And if there's any questions, I'm available.
Do we have any questions?
Mr. Gonzalez, when do you project the freshmen moving over to the main campus? And that's going to leave you De Anza Academy vacant. And then you have on the far end of town the portable classrooms. Are they going to be taken out or depleted, or
Right.
what's
So
the future?
that's a good question, Mr. Pacheco. So, you know, two parts. You know, the first one, if Measure Q passes, it's going to take between 3 and 5 years to get the whole project complete, because there's a substantial amount of buildings that need to be built. And so we're looking at about a 3 or 5 year. But the Measure Q will fund everything that we need to be able to build the facilities to make sure that we bring the 9th grade over to Calexico High School. You know, it's been such a long time that we have not had the 9th grade with the high school. They almost feel that they're on their own in an island. They don't feel like they're part of the high school. And so we want to make sure that we have a true comprehensive 9th through 12th grade high school, like every single other district in the county has, and really for the most part in the state of California. So that's one part of it. That building will be left vacant. You're right. One of the conversations, and this would be a further conversation to have with the board, is to have a more permanent place for the students of Enrique Camarena Junior High School. It's portables. There is no permanent structures. I was a principal at Enrique Camarena Junior High School for 4 years, so I know the temporary facility very well, and it's lacking in facilities with permanent structures. Just for example, like a multi-purpose room gym, you know, a permanent cafeteria, permanent large library. And so those are some of the things that we would be able to accomplish, you know, by vacating the 9th grade campus that currently is at high school. Correct.
It'll be phased in.
Right.
Yeah, the modules, those are terrible.
Right. It was a temporary fix back in 2000, I think 7 it started,
7, 8.
and it just never materialized to anything more than that.
It's good to hear that we'll be able to house all our
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez, for coming and sharing this with us. I think it's very informational, not just to us, for the community also. And this is something that, I think it is for the benefit of all. I've seen Measure Q, marketing, publicity throughout town, but it's really good that you came down. But also, I would like to also extend or ask for maybe a joint collaboration, and I come from workforce. My background is workforce and economic development. So I have been, saying this for years, and I've seen it. I've gone to many events at the high school. I'm part of the school site council for the high school. I witnessed, some of the accomplishments that have happened, with the culinary program. I have been fed by the students excellent food. So with all of that, what I would like to see, hopefully, in the very near future, and you said it, and we all know that we're going through a pandemic, but just getting together, as district, city, citizens, where we can come together and work together also to, not just on creating these facilities, which is really great, it's exciting, but I want to more also look at preparing our workforce, right? You talk about STEAM, before we were talking about STEM and CTE, which is great. We know that not every single student is a college-bound, material, but they might be a good CTE, candidate, and they can make good money. They're good career pathways for them. So, but we need you. We need you to prepare the workforce. We need for us to, as a city, to create a workforce that will actually bring life to our city. We know that to attract, businesses, to attract economic development, we need to have that. We need to have the workforce. And that's not to say that you're not doing that. You're doing a wonderful job. And, this is just proof that all these facilities, all this technology that is going in, but it's just collaborating, having a strategic plans, which you have and we have, but getting together, getting those plans together, having a joint target, San Diego State, IVC, county, all of these stakeholders that, can come together and plan and work towards that, goal where, again, creating a sustainable workforce who will be, going into jobs that we create from that economic development that we might be able to attract, and we can attract, but we have to have the workforce. So I commend you on those efforts, but let's get together. Let's sit down and work on some goals. So hopefully you can take that back to your team and your board, and hopefully that can happen soon also.
Absolutely, Councilman Garcia. Thank you for sharing that. College and career is, our focus. You just mentioned it very well when it comes to the college component, but the career component as well, and the pathways, and our youth that is more driven in going to a work type environment, straight out of high school as well. I think the collaboration is something that is always important, right? To make sure that we're sharing the same goals and moving in the same direction. And so I will communicate that with our school board. I know that once upon a time there were joint meetings between the city
Yes.
and the district, and I think those are very important. And so I will communicate that with our school board.
I was going to say, Mr. Gonzalez, I strongly concur with Councilman Garcia, and I'm proud to have been part of the school district's family. But just in a general sense, it's a good thing that we revise us coming together and having joint meetings, collaborating, working out common issues or concerns that we have. We need to be together, so we extend a heartfelt invitation to the school district on our behalf to come together and start collaborating.
Thank you, Councilman Hodge.
Well, thank you so much for joining us
Thank you, ma'am.
and the information.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. Long time no see. Good.
moving forward, proclamation celebration for Mrs. Teresa
coming.
Martinez for her 95th birthday.
Wow.
Buenas tardes, señora Martínez. ¿Cómo se siente? Bien, okay. Okay, so whereas Teresa R. Martinez was born on October 25th, 1925 in Para, Mexico, where she grew up and attended schools. And
Whereas after graduating from high school, she worked as a legal secretary, met her future husband, Jesus Martinez, and after a courtship, they married and moved to the city of Mexicali and raised 5 children: Hector, Estela, Magdalena, Yolanda, and Martha, and
Whereas both Jesus and Teresa decided to move their family to the United States of America, they applied for immigration successfully, and in the summer of 1967, the Martinez family immigrated and made their home in Calexico, California. And whereas both Teresa and her husband Jesus found jobs as farm workers, working in various cities throughout the Imperial and Riverside counties, while their children attended various Calexico schools, and all graduating from Calexico High School. 2 of them pursued higher education, graduating from a local junior college, and 1 graduating from a 4-year university. And
Whereas years later, all of their 5 children married, moved away to other cities, soon making them proud grandparents. And whereas in her later years, Teresa decided to become a U.S. citizen to exercise her right to vote, she obtained her citizenship and has since been casting her vote in every election. And
Whereas after losing her husband in 2013, she decided to stay in her hometown of Calexico, where she has lived at the same address since 1969. Whereas on October 25th, Teresa will be celebrating her 95th birthday and is looking forward to becoming a great-great-grandmother for the first time.
now therefore be it resolved that the city of Calexico wishes Mrs. Teresa Martinez a wonderful 95th birthday and many more years filled with health and happiness in the company of her loved ones. And witness whereof I hereunto affix my signature and official seal of the city of Calexico on the 21st day of October 2020.
Very good. God bless her. 95.
felicidades,
Sí.
felicidades.
We have pulled item 5. So moving on to item 6, Calexico Police Department report as presented by Police Chief Gonzalo Gerardo.
So, I asked item 5 to be pulled. I know it was a recognition for the traffic controllers. And it's better if they're here and not me receiving the award because they're the ones that work and work that sends this caravan, not me. So it's fitting for them to come and receive that award, and I think it'll be better for it. So I'm going to say it in Spanish, and I hope I get it right, and then I'll translate it in English what I have to say. So I wrote it down and said, so if I make any mistakes, I don't have a Spanish degree. Buenas noches, alcaldesa, ayuntamientos, señores y señoras, y ciudadanos de Calexico viendo en su casa hoy. Escribí lo siguiente para mantenerme en tanto de lo que quiero informarles. Lo siguiente no es una excusa, sino un informe informativo. Ha recibido muchas llamadas telefónicas de residentes y amigos molestos con preocupaciones sobre el aumento de la delincuencia y de los delincuentes que caminan por las calles libremente. Han pasado varias semanas desde la última vez que les informé sobre las operaciones del Departamento de Policía. Ha informado que habíamos visto un aumento en la importación de drogas peligrosas fuera en las calles por parte de los agentes de la policía de Calexico. Solo en las últimas 3 semanas, los oficiales de la policía de Calexico encontraron un total de más de 12 libras de metanfetamina, más de 300 pastillas de Oxycontin o oxicondona, y se cumplieron 3 órdenes de cateos en esta ciudad. En una de esas órdenes de cateos fue en la calle Primera, donde le pudimos ayudar a una persona que se salieran los habitantes porque estaban importando drogas de México, porque están en la calle Primera y estaban aventando las drogas por el cerco. Ha habido personas que han sido arrestadas por asaltos y robos a mano armada. A pesar de que la pandemia del COVID-19 continúa, nosotros, oficiales de la policía, continúan haciendo y arrestando y tomando informes. Desafortunadamente, recibo muchas quejas de las víctimas de delitos y de nuestros oficiales que las personas que son arrestadas no están siendo registradas en la cárcel del condado. Seguimos arrestando a las mismas personas. Dependiendo de los cargos que los llevamos a la instalación, lo llevamos de reserva a la policía, al departamento de policía, para procesar una cita y liberarlos acá afuera que salen. Quizás se pregunta cuándo y por qué la cárcel del condado dejó de aceptar a algunos criminales en la cárcel de ellos. Esto comenzó justo después de que comenzó la pandemia del COVID-19. El día 6 de abril del 2020 fue cuando empezó esto. El Consejo Judicial del Estado de California, la ley, hizo las fianzas temporalmente a $0 para las personas acusadas de delitos menores y delitos graves no violentos. Los únicos delitos menores registrados son los delitos de violencia doméstica y los únicos delitos graves son los de primer grado. Esto de primer grado es como si alguien se mete a robar a una casa, es primer grado. Pero si se meten a robar a un negocio, no es primer grado, viene siendo segundo grado. Quiere decir que la cárcel del condado no los acepta por la ley esta. El Departamento de Policía de Calexico todavía está respondiendo a todas las llamadas de servicio, pero tenemos que priorizar nuestras llamadas. Entendemos que para nuestros ciudadanos que son víctimas de un delito, esto puede resultar una cosa muy traumática. Nosotros también sentimos lo que ellos sienten y entendemos las frustraciones que tienen los ciudadanos. Nosotros también estamos bien frustrados al tratar con los mismos criminales todos los días. Luego incluimos el componente de salud mental y los procedimientos por los que tenemos que pasar para obtener la ayuda que necesitamos. También todas las ciudades de Calexico, en el Valle Imperial y también de todo lo que es California y la nación, tienen el mismo problema con una persona con salud mental. No hay suficientes recursos. Ahorita estamos trabajando con el condado para tratar de a ver si podemos aliviar este tipo de problema que tenemos. El Departamento de Policía desea informarles que no es un delito, y quiero que oigan esto, no es un delito ser una persona indigente o tener una enfermedad de salud mental. No es crimen, no los puede llevar a la cárcel. Algunas personas sin hogar optan quedarse sin hogar, son algo que ellos quieren hacer, aunque les queramos dar ayuda, no quieren recibir ayuda. La salud mental no es una elección, es una enfermedad, no es crimen. Tengo una actualización sobre nuestros oficiales que están en entrenamiento. Ahora vamos a cambiar a otro tema. Desde nuestra última reunión, un oficial ya está fuera de entrenamiento. Y es otra persona más que tenemos en la calle, en su patrulla solo. A partir del 1 de noviembre de este año, del 2020, un oficial va a empezar a andar solo también. La semana que entra, un oficial ya empieza lo que es la cuarta fase de 4 fases, es 1, 2, 3, la cuarta. Y en las 4 semanas después, yo digo que para los términos del diciembre, al 1 del año, este oficial también va a dar solo. Quiere decir que ya van a ser 3. Y me va a quedar 1 en entrenamiento, 2 en entrenamientos. Estamos buscando cómo cubrir los puestos vacantes futuros para oficiales de policías y un despachador de seguridad pública. Cuando se pueda hacer, se va a hacer. Como dije antes, el proceso para contratar estos puestos es largo y se requiere mucho tiempo. Los requisitos y nuestros estándares vigentes exigidos por la ley de California son muy estrictos. Una vez que los puestos de oficiales de policía estén ocupados, ya que tengamos estos oficiales aquí y sean aprobados, y después que terminen su entrenamiento, pediré para comenzar a asignar a menos 2 o 3 oficiales a puestos especiales. 2 de los puestos serán internos y 1 será para un grupo trabajando con los federales. Normalmente, esta es otra fase contraria. No expreso públicamente ningún apoyo o oposición a ninguna propuesta estatal que surja durante las elecciones. Esta vez tomaré una posición y les voy a pedir a todos ustedes y los ciudadanos de Calexico que apoyen y que voten sí por la proposición 20. También conocida como la Ley de Protección a las Víctimas de Delitos Violentos y Derechos de las Víctimas. He estado en servicio de policíaco, ya tengo por poquito más de 30 años, y he visto muchos cambios en el sistema de justicia criminal. El ADN ha sido una bendición para ambos lados. Ha liberado a personas inocentes de ser condenadas injustamente y ha resultado en casos en que los sospechosos que no eran conocidos sean arrestados. En este caso, pido que los ciudadanos voten sí a la propuesta 20. Como mencioné antes, el COVID-19 nos dio una idea de lo que es tener un sistema de cero fianza. Las fuerzas de seguridad y víctimas del crimen han visto que no funciona cero fianzas. Hemos visto más infractores recientes durante este sistema de cero fianza que en cualquier otro momento de la aprobación de este proyecto, de la aprobación del proyecto de la ley de la Asamblea del 109, AB 109. Estoy cuidando a nuestras víctimas y ciudadanos de esta comunidad, como debo ser como jefe de policía, pues pidiéndole a ustedes y a la ciudadanía que voten sí por el 20. Nuestros ciudadanos y víctimas no conocen estas leyes y culpan a las fuerzas de orden público de que estos infractores recientes no sean detenidos o procesados a la cárcel. Los echan la culpa a nosotros o los tienen las manos amarradas por las leyes que hacen. Ahora, algo poquito más bueno, pues. Este mes de octubre son meses nacionales de diferentes cosas como el reconocimiento de la conciencia del cáncer del seno, mes nacional de la prevención del delito, mes nacional de la violencia doméstica, mes nacional de educación sobre la depresión, y luego tenemos lo que viene siendo la Semana Nacional del Listón Rojo, que empieza el 23 hasta el 31 de octubre. Este año lo haremos diferente. Por lo general asistimos a algunas escuelas y traemos las historias y el mensaje de la Semana del Listón Rojo. Debido al COVID-19, estaremos haciendo nuestra primera presentación virtual para la escuela primaria de la César Chávez. Pensábamos que iba a ser una tarea muy fácil, pero descubrimos que no es fácil, porque vamos a tener que hacer un poquito más detalle, porque los estudiantes van a ser del kinder al 6º año. Al mismo tiempo, pues yo voy a estar en mi casa viendo esto por internet, porque todo es virtual, y le quiero dar las gracias por darme estos momentos en español. It'll go a lot faster in English, I'm sorry. Good evening, Honorable City Mayor, City Council, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Calexico watching at home. I wrote the following to keep me on track, because I can talk forever. Right? The following is not an excuse, but an informative report. I get many phone calls from upset residents and friends with concerns on the rise of crime and criminals walking the streets freely. It's been several weeks since I updated you on the police department's operations. I have reported that we have seen an increase in importation of seizures of dangerous drugs off the streets by the Calexico police officers. Just these past 3 weeks, Calexico police officers seized a total of over 12 pounds of methamphetamines and more than 300 Oxycontin pills. 3 search warrants were served. Arrests have been made for strong arm robberies and assaults throughout the city. Even though the COVID-19 pandemic continues, our police officers keep making the arrests and making reports. Unfortunately, I receive many complaints from victims of crimes, and our officers too, that the people arrested are not being booked at the Imperial County Jail. We continue to make arrests. Depending on the charge, we take them to the Calexico Police Department. We take them to the booking facility to process and issue a citation and release them out back to the field. We can't hold them. You may wonder when and why the Imperial County Jail stopped accepting some criminals into their jail. This began right after the COVID-19 pandemic started on April 6, 2020. The California State Judicial Council reset the bail amounts temporarily to $0 for people accused of misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies. The only misdemeanors being booked are domestic violence misdemeanors. And the only crimes are the felony crimes that are first degree. And like I said earlier, first degree burglary is residential burglary. Business burglaries don't count as first degree, they don't get booked. The Calexico Police Department is still responding to all calls for service. But we have to prioritize our calls. We understand that our citizens who are victims of a crime, this can be a disturbing and traumatic event. We empathize with them, and we understand their frustration. We too, as police officers, are very frustrated dealing with the same criminals every day. Then we throw in the mental health component and the procedures that we have to go through to get them the help they need. And like I said, I've been working with the Imperial County Health Department and all the chiefs too, and we're trying to get them to expand their bed capacity and their clinicians. They need help on that side too. The Calexico Police Department would like to inform you that being homeless or having a mental health sickness is not a crime. Some homeless people, even though they choose to be homeless, is not a crime. Mental health is a choice. It's not a choice, I'm sorry. It's a sickness. I have updated all of you in the past regarding our field training, where the officers are at. Since our last meeting, one officer is off FTO and he's out in the field on his own. One officer will be off of field training and on his own starting November 1st. One officer is starting his second phase of a 4-phase FTO program to be completed next week, next week. He will be on his own, hopefully, no later than the second week of January of 2021. And I have one officer that's on second phase. This will bring every shift at least one extra officer, plus we will be able to put our school resource officer back to handle the school calls. Even though there's no school, we still handle calls from the school. We are looking at filling any future vacancies and positions for police officers and public safety dispatchers as soon as we can. If the money's there, we're going to fill it. As I said before, the process of hiring these positions is lengthy and time-consuming. The requirements and our current standards asked by the law are strict. Once the police officer positions are filled and the officers have passed their field training, I will be asking, and I'll be start assigning at least 2 officers, 2 out of the 3 officers to a specialized position at the police department. 2 of the positions will be in-house, like I said, probably an investigator and somebody else to help, doing something else, community services. Another officer I'm hoping we'll send out to a federal task force so we can start receiving some of those asset forfeiture monies and working cases that are coming out of Calexico, but we cannot receive any asset forfeiture because we don't participate in that group. And like I said, I normally don't publicly voice any support or opposition to any state propositions that come up during the elections, but this time I will take a stand and I will ask you to support Proposition 20, also known as Protect Victim of Violent Crimes. Okay. Anyways, and that's my position I have there. In closing, I would like to remind you of the awareness campaigns for October 2020. There are many, but these are the ones that most often deal with the police department. And there's a lot of them, but I'm just going to name a few. Breast Cancer Awareness, National Crime Prevention Month. This is October. National Domestic Violence Month, National Depression and Education Awareness Month, National Sudden Infant Death Month. National Fire Prevention Week was the first week of October. National Fallen Firefighter Memorial Week was the weekend was the first weekend of October. And of course, National Red Ribbon Week, which starts the 23rd to the 31st of October. And this year, we will be doing it different. It's going to be virtual because of COVID-19. I thought it was going to be an easy task for our officers to do it, but we learned that it's not. We have to deal with trying to fix our presentation at the same time to educate the kinder through 6th grade. And there's a very big age gap in that, so it's going to be kind of hard for my officers doing that to be able to keep the kindergarten kids' attention while not boring the 6th graders, and then try to deliver the message to the 6th graders while trying to keep our kindergartens entertained. Anyways. And thank you for your time. That's all I have for you.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, real quick, I know that was a very comprehensive report, and I like that, to keep the community informed and us also informed. I'm still very interested in finding out if we can just, keep us informed on your collaboration with behavioral health, and dealing with those individuals with mental health, issues. And, maybe, I know there's a pilot, my understanding there is a pilot program, with the El Centro PD. I don't know if I'm wrong, I misheard, that. So, just, making sure that hopefully there's an opportunity for some training, in-house training with behavioral health. I know they don't have that counselors to send out to every call, to tend to those type of calls, because, you don't, as an officer, you don't know sometimes how to respond to those calls. But, hopefully at a future date, you can come back with that. I would love to.
So real quick, like on that one, and the pilot program is going to be a good program that we all are going to be part of, every city. It's going to start with the sheriff's office and a mental health counselor. They would get called out here they will respond and try to take over the calls. Eventually, we're all going to get trained, and we're all going to have a mental health clinician and a cage car coming to Calexico. So our time spent dealing with a mental health crisis, instead of spending anywhere from 4 to 16 hours, it should not be more than 1 hour. So we are moving forward with that. It's a roadmap that was worked on. We did get the report February 2020, but because of COVID, it got put on the sidelines. And we had to revive it because of our increased calls for mental health. And so we have been pushing it. We are working very well together with the county so far. The CEO, Ms. Leticia Plancarte, who's a new interim director of the mental health, and ourselves are working together to resolve this issue.
Thank you.
Chief, how strong are we now, body-wise? Boots.
We're almost there. I mean, if you really want numbers, I mean,
No, we added
it's
3 more.
so we have 3 more. We'll have 4 more officers on the streets by January that are going through training, and we're not there yet, but we're there better than we were 2 years ago.
Yeah.
One of the things is we have gone through 19 people because they have not passed their field training. We have had to let them go, and it goes back to, can they do the job or they can't do the job? It's quality over bodies, and the city of Calexico deserves to have quality officers that give their 100% and that reflect what the city's direction is going to and what their PD is going to. And I want them to bring service with a smile. I want them to be empathetic to victims. I want them to explain things to victims and even try to calm them down when we take a long time getting there, because when you're a victim of a crime, 5 minutes turns into an hour in their head. 20 minutes is an hour and a half. Like I said, anybody has a complaint on a response time, I can look at the time they were dispatched to the time they got there, and if we're wrong, we will fix that problem.
Good to know. We're building up.
We're
building up.
slowly but surely, we're
Yes.
getting there.
And I know it's hard qualifications to get people to come on board to become a police officer. Not everybody is willing to take on the challenge and the job requirements of a police officer. So it's a hard thing.
You know, with everything going around the nation, a lot of police officers are retiring, and a lot of people that wanted to be police officers don't want to do the job. So, you know, we just hope and pray that the people that had that as a dream will continue that dream, because it's a great career. You know, I've been doing it for 30 years, and, you know, it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, coronavirus update by Fire Chief Diego Avila.
Good evening, Honorable City Council, the staff that is in the room tonight, and obviously our customers and citizens of Calexico that are watching via our electrical platforms. Today's COVID-19 is going to be brief. There's not much happening. Unfortunately, we still remain in the purple phase. Our positivity rate went up to 10.65, which was, I think the last time we had our meeting, we were down in the 9s. So we've increased that. Our per 100,000 cases, 18.49. I think last time we were at 10. So unfortunately, things are changing, and not for the better in this case. As far as our total numbers, and these are current as of this morning, total cases were 3,853. Our active cases are 130. Total recovery, which you guys know by now is my favorite number, is at 3,608. And unfortunately, we have had 115 deaths. So what has happened? We may have been taking a little step back on the basic precautions: wear your face piece, wash your hands, social distance. We still got to do those in order to change. So hopefully by the next city council, I can acknowledge that our numbers have improved and gone down, okay? The other thing that I have to announce today is the border. We were anticipating today for it to be open for the for non-essential traffic. It hasn't. It's been extended one more month till November 21st. And that's it for COVID. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right.
I don't have any
Thank you,
questions.
guys.
Any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Purple.
Purple phase for right now. Yes, sir.
Okay, announcements?
These proceedings may be viewed on the City of Calexico website at www.calexico.ca.gov the Friday following the City Council meeting. Community office hours with Mayor Adriola Fernandez are suspended until further notice due to coronavirus COVID-19.
Public comments?
This is the time for the public to address the City Council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. During the current state of emergency, public comments will be received in the following ways. 1. Submit public comments via email by 4 p.m. on Wednesday, October 21 to ggarcia@calexico.ca.gov. These comments will be read aloud during the meeting and entered into the record. 2. Make public comment live via Zoom by submitting the request via Zoom chat. Persons should submit the name and section of the agenda they wish to speak on, such as public comments, or you may state the number of the agenda item. Any comments received during or after the meeting will be distributed to the City Council and retained for the official record. The City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. And we have one speaker at this time, and it is Mr. Arvizu. We are asking him to unmute. Mr. Arvizu? He's not unmuting. Hang on.
Buenas noches. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Puede seguir.
Sí, buenas noches. ¿Me escuchan?
Sí, buenas noches, señor Aviso.
Yo no puedo escuchar nada, pero no sé si me pueden escuchar ustedes a mí.
Sí, sí lo escuchamos, señor Arvizo.
Señor Arvizu, ¿puede dar su comentario?
Bueno, es que casi no se escucha, pero nomás quiero decir que la gente de los comerciantes de la ciudad de Calexico, pues muchos de ellos siguen en necesidad. Afortunadamente, hace un par de días hubo gente que obtuvo la ayuda que dio a la ciudad de Calexico, pero hay mucho más comercios ahorita. La pandemia que está sucediendo en este momento realmente está afectando cada día más a los comercios de Calexico, lo cual eso hace que nuestra ciudad en un futuro vaya a seguir siendo afectada por eso. Necesitamos que ustedes trabajen un plan que verdaderamente pueda ayudar tanto de una manera de protección de salud como una protección de seguridad para la gente que está eh, que está luchando, que sigue luchando para poder seguir adelante. De veras les pido a cada uno de ustedes que volteen a ver a esa gente, que hablen con ellos, que busquen tratar de hacer una junta con ellos en general, y poder escuchar sus problemas, su situación, lo que están viviendo. Al señor Camilo Romero, no lo conozco personalmente, pero usted es nuevo en la silla y tal vez no sepa mucho de la historia de las cosas que sucedieron con los comerciantes de Santo Tomás, pero te pido, Camilo, que aunque seas muy bonita, voltees a ver a esa gente y también trates de escuchar sus necesidades, porque todavía hay gente que no se ha podido levantar, hay compañeros de Santo Tomás que no han podido levantarse desde aquel incidente, y ahora que vino esta pandemia nos agarró mucha gente sin recursos, sin ahorros, y realmente necesitan hacer algo por ellos. Ese es mi comentario. Gracias.
Gracias, señora Rizzo. No more? Okay, then we're moving on to city manager's report.
I'll be brief. Mayor, council members, members of the community. Two things. I want to let you know that on October 19th, we officially released the RFP for Heber Park. Let's not forget that Heber Park is a project that our staff worked diligently on to secure $8.5 million for a park that has been, in a way, not developed to how we expect our community to have access to some of these amenities. If we recall, we're also going to be using half of that property, which is, at this point right now, the old Armory building, as we know. So I do want to let you folks know, along with our community, that the request for proposals has been issued. And I want to thank staff that worked diligently on that. But more than anything, I want to make sure that the community knows that sooner than they think, we'll have the whole complex of Heber Park done. I also want to share, per what you may have read in the media, in periodicals, in news stations, that through the leadership of the Air Pollution Control District at the county level, the city's going to benefit through a grant through US EPA that's going to allow us to address and mitigate the issue that we have with dust control when it comes to our alleys. We're going to be doing some paving of alleys here in Calexico, for which our staff at the Development Services Department is going to be working with the Air Pollution Control District to pinpoint and outline the alleys in Calexico that are going to be paved. So with that, Madam Mayor, that's my report.
Have any questions?
Mr. Figueroa, maybe it's premature on my part to ask this, but more or less a project like Heber Park, if the public is wondering how long it might take, what would you say if there are no major glitches or setbacks?
That's a fair question, and out of keeping this open communication in terms of the progress of the project, I would just wait to see, Mr. Hodge, once we receive proposals, if we deem them complete, if we deem them that they meet the requirements, at that time I can come back and let you know a better timeline of the next steps. This is the first and it's the critical part of the procurement process. Why? Because we can anticipate some things to occur that may delay the procurement process. At this time, we've issued the RFP. We anticipate no setbacks. So in my role as an administrator, to give you a firm answer to you and the community, I would wish to wait once we receive those proposals, and I can give you a better timeline.
All right.
That way, I think it's fair for all of us.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Mr. Figueroa, a question on the alley. Is that just residential or both with commercial?
That's in broad base, the alley system in Calexico, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
City Council comments.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Morris, Pro Tem. Do you have anything?
At this point, Mayor, I do not have comments.
Councilman Pacheco?
We had an opportunity to meet with the Southern Border Committee last week, and we came up with a mission statement, and we're plugging along, and we're trying to address the needs of the community, and we have a lot of stakeholders in this group that are coming up with some good suggestions for us to look into. So we're just getting started. It's our third meeting. Will be on August the 6th, next Thursday? November the 6th. Okay? Thursday. Thank you. And we'll update you as we go along. But it's a working committee with a lot of people recommending and making suggestions. So we welcome their comments, and we write them down, and we see if we can better the city with those comments. It's a work in progress, but we're meeting with stakeholders of the community.
Good.
For Calexico. That's good. That's all I have.
Councilman Garcia?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just the last time that we met, we were going through the League of Cities, conference. That was the first for me. So lots of good learning opportunities from other cities, best practices. So that was very helpful in my understanding, and just reinforcing some of the things that we're doing, and best practices from other areas. So that was that, and then also I had a chance to, I know Madam Mayor probably gonna say something about this, but also there was a meeting with the mayors from all the cities from border cities from
border
here
cities.
to in Arizona. So that was very
Waterfront.
also informative. In Mexicali also. So just to hear what they're doing, and I think it's a good thing when we are able to share what we're doing, that some of the accomplishments, and in a way to kind of learn from each other. And I think that's key. I think that's one of the ways that we're going to continue to collaborate, but not just that, but also accomplish some of the goals that we're setting ourselves. Like Councilman Pacheco mentioned, with this committee, I think that's a great start, for keeping this city moving forward. With the comment from Mr. Arbizu, in working all together, business community, just the community in general, I think, it's going to take all of us to move forward and to get out of this and to put a plan together. So I know that we have been discussing that, starting some planning sessions. I will make sure that we champion that, and we get back to our community, and not just the business community, but the entire community. So again, also I want to acknowledge that staff. I know we always kind of we get all the requests for services from the citizens, and we kind of turn around and go through the city manager or the staff, and you respond. So you respond, in due time, and appreciate that, and thank you, from the bottom of my heart, and I convey to you also, that thank you from the citizens that get those services. So we don't have a lot, but what we have, we're doing a great job. So thank you. Just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Councilman Hodge?
3 issues or items. Number 1, I believe we need to seriously sit down with IID and find solutions to fixing the lights at Rodriguez Park. They've been out for a very long time. And 2 citizens have approached me complaining to me that our Wells Fargo Bank, downtown Calexico, they are not providing outdoor shade for consumers while waiting for service. Is there something that we might be able to do as a city? That would be appreciative. And then this final one is I need to make a correction to a candidate's false statement that was made on Channel 66 in Mexicali. The candidate stated that we received an additional $60,000 from Republic Waste Services to hire a new code enforcer for downtown. That part of his statement is true. What is false is the accusation that the money was spent illegally, that corruption took place, that someone pocketed the money. There is no truth to his accusation. No evidence was given to substantiate the claim. The truth is that the city still has the money, and we are now in the process of hiring a code enforcer. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman Hodge.
Thank you.
Okay, my report is, yes, I did attend, I was one of the panelists for the Forefront ED Binational Conference, which took place last Wednesday, which included mayors from Yuma, Welton, Somerton, San Luis, Arizona, and San Luis, Rio Colorado, Sonora, Mexicali, and El Centro, and in which we provided bullet points of economic development, infrastructure, tourism, and education. Like Mr. Gamido said, Mr. Garcia said that it's quite interesting to know what our neighbors are doing. And this conference, which is the mayors, it has to do with the border mayors. So it's quite interesting what they're going through. They're going through the same problems we're going through with this COVID and the closing of our borders. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Moving on with the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items number 8 and 9.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Mayor Rola Fernandez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
On this, can I abstain because it's approving minutes of meeting from June 3rd?
abstain.
So, I guess
Councilmember Hodge,
Aye.
motion carries unanimously.
Aye.
4-1, abstain.
Okay, so now moving on to discussion and potential action items. 10/20/2021 first quarter budget status report and proposed budget amendment.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, members of the community. I first just want to backtrack here for 1 second and remind the community that our budget for fiscal year 2020-2021 not only was adopted on time, with ample time prior to the commencement of fiscal year 2020-21, but we did our best effort to accomplish something that had not happened in a while, and that was creating forums where department heads, where the city council, with ample time, provide input on the budget process. We still have room for improvement. However, we are beginning to see some steps of change so we can continue to be accountable and transparent, which is what our community demands. So what we have here for you today is we're going to be presenting to you the year-end report for fiscal year 2019-2020, and we're going to talk about the first quarter budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. So what are the objectives of this presentation? I do want to point out that as part of the backup for the agenda, we have the detailed report that our finance director and staff prepared for the item. What you have here in front of you is a presentation that summarizes such detailed report for year-end 1920 and for first quarter 2021. The items that we're going to be covering include the ending fund balance that ended on June 30th, 2020 for fiscal year 1920. We're going to talk about also the expenditures for the past fiscal year, and we're going to also incorporate the items related to the first quarter of fiscal year 2020 as it relates to the budget that got adopted for the full fiscal year. Okay, so what we have here for you on the screen represents a summary of where we were at in terms of how we closed fiscal year 1920. And I do want to be clear so everybody can go back and remember that what we do as part of our fiscal calendar is have a third-party audit our year-end reports. At this point right now, the figures that we have are the unaudited figures. Why? Because as we've done in the past 2 fiscal years, we've moved up in terms of finalizing that audit as when it should be completed. This year, we anticipate that we're even going to be ahead of the curve even more and finish that audit. As it is right now, we like to be full disclosure and bring this to the attention of the council and obviously the community. So we have a beginning fund balance of $686,000. I'm just going to round out figures. The exact figures are in the back of documentation and up on the slide. Based on the results to the projection for the past fiscal year, we saw an increase and a change of $222,000. Overall, in terms of comparing revenues to potential losses as part of the results, we saw an increment of $93,000. What this is that we have an ending working capital of $1,002,461. In essence, as we can see, this is an increase from what we initially budgeted when the budget got adopted for fiscal year 2021. At this point, the way we're going to handle this presentation, our director, our expert in the field, our finance director, Carla Lobatos, will provide some of the fine points of the items that we touch. So at this point, Ms. Lobatos, is there anything you wish to add to this?
Good evening, council members. At this point, as Mr. Figueroa mentioned, we had initially budgeted that we were going to have $686,000. By the third quarter, we knew we were going to be at about $909,000. And as a prelim, as of now, we're expecting to have $1,002,000. So all of this, again, as Mr. Figueroa mentioned, is they're unaudited numbers. We will have an audit more than likely, and I'm expecting to have it by the end of this calendar year, which is still ahead of what we had last year. And these results or these projections were done quarterly for the most part, and this is as a result of a year-end. But we started looking at the trends and see how money was moving. We had a very good sales tax last year, so that resulted in the increase of revenues. We've been holding or keeping our expenditures down, so that's what's making up all of these numbers. If you need any more specific numbers, I'll be happy to answer questions once we're done with the presentation.
Absolutely. Let's move forward. At this point, we do want to point out and be clear that we're not proposing that you take action on any changes to the general fund at the end of the first quarter for fiscal year 2020-2021. At this point, we see that departments have been doing a diligent job in keeping track of their department budgets. At this point right now, we see no need to bring to your attention any particular changes to the general fund budget. That doesn't mean that prior to the next quarter report, we will possibly come in. Why? Because there are some opportunities within our budget that we want to take advantage of, that we put some monies to use for the well-being of the community. That, like I mentioned, is an analysis that we're doing through the finance department, and we will be bringing this to your attention in the coming meetings. So let's stick to the general fund. And let's look at the chart that we have here. This chart summarizes more in a specific way what we alluded to in the first slide. We're looking here at the numbers for fiscal year 2019-2020, from when the budget got adopted, the amendments that occurred, and when do those amendments occur? They occur like at the settings that we're in right now, the quarterly reports. Ms. Lovatos alluded that the majority of the amendments that we did to our budget for fiscal year 1920 came through the quarterly reports that we present to council. Sometimes there are outstanding items that require a budget amendment resolution, but we did not see that. So the changes that you folks amended came in through the quarterly reports. What you have here on the last column for fiscal year 2019-2020 is the preliminary actual numbers, like Ms. Lovatos mentioned. These numbers are yet not final. These are going to be part of the audit that we're going to complete by the end of the calendar year. However, as you can see on fiscal year 2020-21, this is focused on general fund. You see our adopted budget, and as you can see at this point, there are no updates. The middle column is empty because we're not asking at this point for any amendments. We're going to continue based on the projections that were approved for this fiscal year. Ms. Lovatos, do you wish to add anything?
Not at this time.
Okay, let's move forward. Let's move forward to how we're looking as part of the first quarter for fiscal year 2020-2021. As you can see, the $93,000 that we talked about, that Ms. Lovato specifically referenced, have to do with additional program income that came higher than what was projected when the budget got adopted. What does that tell us? In a nutshell, that tells us that even though we experienced a shortfall in our sales tax revenue because of COVID, for this first quarter, we were able to offset that with the program income revenue that came above the projected revenue. With that said, what this tells us is that at this point right now, we can grow from $909,000, considering the $93,000, to what Ms. Lovatos mentioned as part of our adjusted budget for the end of the first quarter, moving us to $1,002,461. Ms. Lovatos, can you please complement anything that I may have missed?
Well, as Mr. Figueroa mentioned, this report is including some of the program revenues that increased. Even though we have COVID and our sales tax went down, we still were able to be very close to what our sales tax were budgeted for. But fortunately, or unfortunately, I guess, our ambulance revenues went up because of the volume. So that was an increase. We also had an increase in property tax. We also had an increase on cannabis tax. So there were several other program revenues that increased, and we still came up on top regardless of COVID. So we're still looking good, and for 2020, we're not requesting any changes at this time because it's too soon to tell. We don't know what our sales tax will be for the period of April to June. That report will be coming out sometime in November. So by the next quarterly report, we will have an updated number on how we'll be closing the year.
So just so we can put some perspective in terms of, I'm sure the council, the members of the community are curious to know, what was that dip in our sales tax revenue from what we projected to what we actually received in the form of a report from our sales tax auditor? And that is, we saw a dip of 12.5%. 12.5%, it's significant. That's only, let's not forget, that's only up to the end of the first quarter. Okay, that still means that, like Ms. Lovatos mentioned, we still need to be very cautious. We need to be very careful. We got to be conservative with our budget. Why? Because we still have some unknowns that we need to factor in. So far, as you can see, we have continued the trend not to grow our savings, if you want to look at it from that perspective, as we would wish, but we're not taking steps back either. So that's important to know. We're not where we need to be. Again, we're not where we need to be. However, we have some stability, and we see some minor improvement. Still have a lot of room to go and better, so we can address the multiple needs that we have in the city. This is the sales tax comparison, comparing the last numbers that we have, which is, like Ms. Lovatos mentioned, up to March of 2020, how these compare to the same time of the year, but from 2019. It's obvious, as you can see, some of the industries, some of the categories have dipped significantly. And again, this goes to put into perspective what I shared with you in terms of what that percentage represents for Calexico. Again, this pie chart reflects what I shared with you specifically for March of 2020, where, depending on the industry and the category, the sales tax revenues are coming in from. And by the way, I do want to make a point. The way this pie chart is broken up is consistent with where each of the previous audited reports from sales tax distribute the sales tax to. So in essence, we haven't seen a drastic change in terms of which industries are the ones that bring in more sales tax and which ones bring in less sales tax. Ms. Lovatos, would you care to share with us on this graph referring to long-term cost obligations?
Sure. Again, we've been presenting these long-term cost obligations. We still have some money that we have to pay. We have obligations with CalPERS. We have unfunded liability, JPIA retrospective charges. We're coming out of some of this debt, but still, we still have a very hefty debt. So it is important for us to consider when considering expenditures, because we still have to, we have a commitment to make payment on this obligation. So this will be updated again once we close the year, and we will update because at this point wastewater advance has been paid off, as you can see, and but we still have CalPERS, which is one of our highest obligations. It's a multi-million-dollar obligation, and it's true at least 20 years. So it is important that we know, and it is considered that we have to make payments on these obligations.
And as some of you may have attested in your conference, League of Cities conference topics, we're seeing this becoming obviously an issue for all cities in the state of California. It's a different story. It's a different story for the state and state employees. Different story. When it comes to municipalities, it's across the board. Same issue from all of us. In summary, as the last slide, we just want to share with you something that our finance director began to instill in her reports since she's been with us, and that is future projections. And I do want to be clear, these future projections are based on inflation and other market factors that any economist will factor in from one year to the next. So at this point right now, we're going based on our current stance that we have right now on our current city economy, factoring in some of these market factors that can give us a glimpse of what the next 4 to 5 years will look like. It doesn't mean that these numbers cannot be better. It's just for all of us to have a forecast, a bare minimum forecast of what the numbers look like. Obviously, we anticipate that those numbers shall be better if we continue sound practices and hopefully begin to move into a better state of development coming to our city, which we anticipate these numbers will go up. As a final statement, I do want to share with this council that given the presentation that Ms. Lovatos and I have shared with you, the City of Calexico administration is not considering in any type of way any potential employee layoff nor any furlough of any city employees. We just like to throw this to the table for the council and the members of the community So we can all have the same information. As you can see right now, we're going based on our current projections, our current factual information that we receive from third parties to put together this report on top of the analysis that our finance director does. Again, just for clarity, for transparency, the city at this moment, based on what we presented to you, is not in that position. Ms. Lovatos, would you like to just share anything else that I may have missed?
No, that was perfect, Mr. Figueroa. As Mr. Figueroa mentioned, at this point, we're not considering any furloughs, any layoffs. We need to remain conservative though, but other than that, we're staying on the course of action. So we're trending okay, I guess, or trending well, but we do need to remain conservative and try to control our expenditures for now until we see sales tax come in or we see the economy getting better. But other than that, I think we're doing really well and things are moving on.
We still, and let's be clear, we still have not fully seen the impact to our finances of COVID-19. We still haven't seen that yet. However, what we can do is see the trends based on the first quarter numbers that we received. And all we can do is just base ourselves on that and continue the conservative practices so we can stay stable and afloat. Priority number one right now is stability and keeping ourselves running with positive numbers.
Thank you so much for your report. Do we
Thank
have
you.
any questions by our councilman?
Very positive.
Madam Mayor, if we could go back to the sales tax comparison March 2019 versus March 2020 graph, no, before that one right there. So we're looking at the projections. I mean, we're looking at first quarter 19 and first quarter 20, right? So, and we look at, I mean, we're seeing a trend. You know, we're looking at the industries, you know, where we're getting the least amount of revenue. And we know that it's business and industry, building and construction. So that, you know, hasn't changed, whether it's COVID, pre-COVID, hopefully after COVID, you know, we will see an improvement. So, and that's where, we know that already. We know that that's an issue. That's where we're not getting our revenue. So, and I think, you know, previous councils, you know, now we're here, and that's something that we have been asking, and I'm gonna ask again. If we can look at, you know, our building and construction, you know, I know our fees are high, and we have said it to so many times. So if we can look into that, you know, we know where we need to improve. We know where we have to do some work, and that's for all of us. That's not just the staff, that's all of us as a council. So we know where we have to do some work. We know where our revenue is coming from. You know, we see that the general consumer goods, those are the ones that are providing us the most of our revenue. So that we know, but we need to diversify. We need to make sure that, you know, we bring new sources of revenue, and that has remained constant. You know, we're supposed to be, you know, trending against, on the positive, the building and construction. I mean, we have seen very few projects, you know, come up. I would like to see something like that, you know, something to address that, something to help our businesses. Going back to even some of the, you know, ordinances that are in the books, something as maybe as businesses are getting back to some normalcy, or at least operating, you know, in a limited capacity. But I know that even to put a banner outside their business advertising that they're open, or, you know, we charge them for that, you know, and we charge, you know, $100 per banner. I think, you know, it's just asking for something that they don't have right now. So we can go back and look at some of those things. If we can just find a way to make this quick, you know, I know we have limited resources, I get it. But if we sacrifice, if we put time into looking at our fees, into looking as to how we can, you know, bring back the building and construction, you know, have projects coming in and making sure that they come to fruition. Because that's where we're gonna get, you know, a lot of our monies, a lot of our revenue, and that is gonna be constant. You know, retail, has its up and downs. And as far as employment, we know the type of employment that they generate. They're welcome, and I love them. but we need to have a stable industry that provides a
Absolutely.
stable income. So,
Councilman
us-
Garcia, if I may interrupt, this is sales tax coming from that industry. So building and construction would mean maybe one of the companies that we have local that sells, let's say, wood or something like that.
And I get that.
And I do agree, we should improve our revenues as far as
Because
development
again,
services, but
we-
this is just sales tax.
Yes, and I get
Just to
it, and
clarify.
I'm just talking again, you know, even just on the revenue, and this is just sales tax from that industry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that, but it goes tied also into the industry that we need to have coming in. You know, so, I'm not saying specific, this is the issue, but we know that we need to improve in that
just-
area, just as a general statement. I get it, these are just revenues from that. Just putting it out there again, let's look at that as soon as possible, so we can. start-
Absolutely, Councilman Garcia, it's a point well taken. I know that there's frustration from those that are seeing us right now, which is our community members, partner agencies from the city. Myself, I share some of that as well, and I'm sure you folks as well. These are things that we will target, and as a matter of fact, we want to go about it in a respectful way to our general fund. What do I mean by that? We've been able to secure monies, discretionary monies, through programs from the state of California that are going to allow us to do the necessary analysis and commission services that will allow us to address some of the points that you brought up, fees and other matters that have to deal with the business development side of things. So it's a point well taken, and we appreciate you bringing it up, and we'll be following up in the coming meetings with specific update reports on some of the examples I just gave you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Figueroa, I know there's some illegal transportation of drugs that people are not paying the city for licenses, and people are delivering in our city. Is there any way that we can, I don't know, have the chief or somebody, I don't know, it's there, I know it is, but is there something that we can do to bring in these people to either start paying up or?
No, that's again a valid point, Mr. Pacheco, and I can share with you something. We already took the first step. The first step was the direction this council gave us to formalize a binding service with a company that precisely is going to allow us to monitor and do the compliance work with the green industry in Calexico, which is the cannabis industry. Ms. Lovato shared with me in recent weeks that we've already executed and formalized that binding partnership with this agency that is going to begin to allow us to monitor that the commercial cannabis activities are being done the way that they were intended to be done here in Calexico. When it comes to the illegal services that are offered, which is what you reference, we are working right now with the police department to be able to have within our team here other opportunities of partnering with regional agencies when it comes to the narcotics task force initiatives, so we can address those illegal happenings that we see in our city. Yes. And as we move forward with that, again, our police chief will be providing update reports so we can all be on the same page.
Mr. Figueroa, totally concur with, again, Mr. Councilman Garcia's comments. And I've always felt, maybe I'm wrong, but I always felt that there was potential and that we continue to have a stronger building relationship with Mexicali. And I always felt that possibly there's ways that we help them, but they can help us. And it is key that we have economic diversity. And maybe they can help us like that. Maybe warehousing can be a possibility. And which leads me to a point which you have said, and I know you concur, is that we have to stop relying on retail only and we have to become more proactive, aggressive. We can't sit on our laurels and wait for developers to come. We have to be aggressive and go out and solicit and network and bring them in here. That is a mind shift. So, I think that what I just said is very important. Mrs. Lovatos, or Mr. Figueroa, I wrote some things down, and I'm probably going to have you repeat some things that you said, but maybe this will be helpful to the public if it can be said or clarified in a different way. And, but first, I commend the staff, the management, the finance department, because we've come a long way. We have. We were on the brink of bankruptcy a few years back, and now look, we have a surplus.
Have a surplus.
So, can you confirm to the council and the public my answers to questions like, and I'll just say the questions, why we aren't progressing fast enough with various projects and goals to satisfy some of the citizens? For instance, because some people, they don't understand, or they say, why we can't hire more men and women for park maintenance, or specifically, why are we down to the bare bones in staff and department resources, or why we can't readily take on new projects from using the general fund. Do you agree, this is my interpretation or answer, that is it not because we are still recovering from the great deficit we inherited a few years ago? Would you
That
say
is
yes to
correct,
that?
Councilman Hodge. We are recovering from prior years. As you recall, when I first came in, we had the state auditing. The state controller's office were performing an audit on us, and that was from year 14-15, and we had a deficit of $4 million. So as of now, as you can see, we have a reserve of a little bit over $1 million. That's still not enough. An ideal percentage is an 8%. We're not there yet. We're getting closer, and it is important that we have reserves because, let's say, like right now, we're going through COVID. If we didn't have reserves, then we wouldn't even have enough to cover the expenditures we currently have. Again, we're trying to be conservative, and that's one of the main reasons why we can't hire any more people. We're still not there. We will be hopefully very soon.
Still not there, but we're progressing.
But we're progressing, and it's actually happening faster than expected. So we're moving forward. It's
Okay.
just not happening maybe at the pace.
So the point being that you've reiterated is we still need to be fiscally conservative.
That is correct.
And another factor that prohibits the city from changing or progressing fast enough, according to some people, you might say, is definitely COVID-19 pandemic. Would you agree that we are not making excuses, but at this time facing the harsh realities of just barely emerging from a financial deficit and coping with COVID-19?
I think on that, Councilman Hodge, yes. Obviously, and Ms. Lovatos reminds me this all the time. If COVID would not have hit, the trend that we were projecting was a very, very positive one that was moving more rapidly than the trend that we had had for the past 2.5 years. So yes, did it affect? Yes. Did some development that would have impacted in a good way our sales tax revenue stall? Yes. So what we need to focus on, one, is maintain those relationships with some of these people that were willing to invest in Calexico pre-COVID. Make sure that we maintain that sound communication, make sure that they feel that we are remembering them. So once the dust clears a little more and we can begin to engage again in some of these projects, that we're going to have a positive impact on sales tax are going to come around again. As it is right now, our development services unit continues to process housing projects here on the west side, housing projects on the north part of town, housing projects through partner agencies where we can provide affordable housing, among other opportunities. Those are still happening. Are they happening at a pace that we would expect? No, absolutely not. Do we still have some improvements to do here in-house? Absolutely. I think the important thing here is that all these things we acknowledge. And myself as a city manager is the first one to say that we acknowledge that we still have a lot of room for improvement. However, I feel that if we continue to build up little by little, we will begin to have, hopefully in the very short term, the communication about going back to the wish list that my departments here presented to you.
Right.
You know, that's what I envision to be the next topic, you know. Let's revisit the wish list of the departments. Why? Because they are the ones that know how to better effectively operate the city on the community services that people see on a daily basis. Okay. So I know the frustration's there. We're not taking steps backward. We're taking small steps
progressing.
forward. Yes.
And I thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Figueroa, I have a question here. What is our goal for the reserve to be comfortable?
Well, I think right now Ms. Lovatos was looking at it from a quarterly perspective. But if we look at it from an annual perspective, Ms. Lovatos, what percentage would you say that you would want to see as reserves, considering your experience in working with GFOA and some of the other cities that you communicate with in terms of our reserves?
Industry standard is between 10 and 15%. We are expecting to be, or we're hoping to be at an 8%, which is 1 month of expenditures. Ideally, again, if we're between 10 and 15, we will be in a very well position. But again, and this is only for contingencies. If we're able to put that money aside, we will be in a much better position to start releasing some of these funds and covering some of the department's needs.
At this point, Madam Mayor, if there are any more comments or questions that we can entertain, there is an item that we wish for you folks to consider for approval. As you can see, we showed you there is a slight change on our projections, and we obviously need to memorialize that.
Okay. So, we need to take a vote.
You want to make a motion to accept the change of the adjusted first quarter? Instead of being at 909, it's currently at 1.2461?
It's a proposed budget amendment based on the elements that we referenced.
All right, and I'll second that.
Okay.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryson, Councilmember Pacheco,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Hodge.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to 11, authorize city manager to sign notice of completion for Andre C. Cordova baseball fields fencing project number 2020-200.
Good
Yes.
news.
Our Public Works Manager, Ms. Falomir, prepared this staff report. In essence, what this is that for this city council to finish the project at Adrian C. Cordova baseball field, specifically for the fencing. As we know, back in February of 2020, earlier in the year, an RFP was issued. In the month of March, the award was issued. And then at this point right now, work has been completed, and we are seeking your approval to do the notice of completion with the contractor.
Do you have any questions?
No, it's a good news.
So do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize city manager to sign notice of completion for Adrian C. Cordova baseball fields fencing project.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryson, Councilmember Pacheco,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Hodge.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to 12, authorize city manager to sign agreement for professional services between the city of Calexico and Signa Systems for installation of fire alarm system at City Hall, a Camarena Memorial Library.
Absolutely, Madam Mayor. So back in May, the City of Calexico, through the Public Works Department, at this moment led by our Public Works Administrative Manager, Ms. Liliana Falomir, began the process to solicit proposals for qualified firms that could provide the installation service of an automated fire alarm system for City Hall and the library, specifically the Camarena Memorial Library. So as a result of this procurement process that we entered on June of 2020, we received 2 proposals. The proposals, as our Public Works Manager diligently did, she included the proposal of the company for which at this moment the recommendation is being made. She also included the RFP. She also included one addendum that was also incorporated into the procurement process. Why? Because we want to make sure that we incorporate all the backup information pertaining to this procurement item. And at this point, the recommendation from staff to City Council is that we go with the lowest bidder, which in this case would be Signal Systems. I would like to add that the fiscal impact comes from the impact fees that were included in the budget that you folks adopted in the budget for fiscal year 2020-21. So a portion of the impact fees that are specifically for capital projects such as this one were included in our budget, and the 2 sources are the general government fund, and the second one would be the library impact fee fund as well.
Make a motion to accept the Signal System as
Do I have a
the
second?
company.
I'll second it.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Hodge.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Moving on to item 13, approval for purchase of bulletproof vests.
At our last city council meeting, our police chief and myself, we presented an item in which we were requesting this council to accept the COPS grant monies, for which a resolution was adopted. The next thing that happened, the chief worked with the County of Imperial to go through the approval process. That occurred. At this point right now, the monies have been made available to the city of Calexico. So at this point right now, as it was presented at the last council meeting, one of the items that these funds can pay for is equipment. So a pressing need that we have right now is to replace the bulletproof vest of our existing police force as they are coming up for expiration. And it's just the right time right now to make sure that we do this. There's a process, as the chief informed us, that we must follow, in which each police officer has to be fitted so they can be customized for each police officer per first the consideration and approval of this council.
Do you have a motion?
A motion for approval for purchase of bulletproof vest.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Hodge.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Moving on to item 14, adopt resolution approving the request by Alphabet Farms LLC to extend expiration of tentative map for 2 years pursuant to Government Code Section 66452.6E.
So, given the crisis, the housing crisis and the market crisis that we experienced in 2008, there was a lot of legislation that got adopted to make sure that subdivision tentative maps that were approved could be extended just because it was going to take a while to recover from the crisis that was experienced in the housing market. As a result of that, state policies were also adopted that granted extensions. At this point right now, we have one tentative map that is being requested you folks consider an extension. Specifically, it's requested by Alphabet Farms, but it's for the Venecia development that at one point was discussed. I want to make sure that I take this time to introduce Jose Carlos Romero. He is our new in-house engineering consultant for the city of Calexico. Mr. Romero has vast experience in the field and also in the development services side. Mr. Romero has been strategic in assisting us with these and other items, such as some that I referenced in my city manager's report. So for this item, one, I introduced him already to the Planning Commission, but I would please ask Mr. Romero if he can to come up and provide additional information on this item in particular.
Good evening, members of the council and the public and city staff. And first of all, I would like to commend staff and city council that you have come up to this point right now. This gives the city, the residents, lots of hope and a lot of optimistic that things can be done right. The presentation from the school district was great. I remember my mother-in-law, when I married Monica, she went to the high school. And then Monica went to the high school, my kids went to the high school, and to see this project coming through is just great. And we're here as family, as residents, and as collaborators with the city. We wanna, you know, and we agreed to support them, and the idea to work with them together, the city and the school district, is something, you know, is great. I think I'm very proud to be part of this team. And let me give you a little bit of my background. I was an employee for the city in the engineering department from 1985 to 1999, almost 14 years. And we got a lot of experiences back then. We were a small city. Engineering was one staff, planning was one staff, building was one staff. We were all in one trailer. You know, it is great to see the city grown, you know, to this point, and the opportunity that the city has to go from here on. I have 35 years of experience as a civil engineer. I've been exposed to the different parts of the developments, residential, commercial, and industrial, the planning side, the building side, the engineering side. So I'm grateful that I've been given the opportunity by you and city manager to collaborate and help out in whatever manners and aspects. I'm available, like I say to my clients, I'm available 24/7. So if anyone has a call, just let us know. We're here to serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr.
You're
Romero.
welcome.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Are there any technical questions on this item for Mr. Romero?
No,
I don't.
not for me.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 14 on the tentative map.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez,
Aye.
Mayor Pretend Prison,
Aye.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Hodge.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Moving on, I think, before we close the meeting, I do have a question, Miguel, and I've meant to ask you on, I know that Mr. Garcia brought up a Wells Fargo.
No.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hodge.
We look alike.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I know that I have brought up Bank of America, and you know, nothing has ever been done on Bank of America. I know you're following through, you're, gonna write a letter to corporate.
We're going through the food chain. So when Mr. Hodge was making his statement, which is again something that we have to follow up on. So we're going here through the local management. Next step is we're going to go up to the district, which in both cases is San Diego, and we're going to keep on knocking on the door until we get a response. One, we continue to see the lingering issue at the former V of A parking lot where they installed the ATMs, where we have large lines that at times even could create a liability just because of how far the lines go. It has to get addressed. We had talked about potential shades also for that B of A parking lot. So that's one. I personally met with the current branch manager here at Calexico, and this was actually something that was passed over by our fire chief, Diego Favila. We had a conversation, open to work with us, but then again, I mean, we want to continue to work with those channels. If we can help the locals here at the banks to have a voice with the higher-ups within the bank, we are going to do that. Sometimes it's not only on them. As we know, it's the executive branch of the bank that actually makes these decisions. We just need to come with a louder voice to make sure that this gets addressed. This also considering, for example, backing ourselves up, because we also have a county supervisor that represents Calexico, in which if we unite our voice, maybe we're going to be heard faster. So these are the things that we're working on. So yes.
Yeah, because as we could see in the Bank of America, a lot of people from across the border also come and do business in Bank of America, and I find it that they're just being neglected. So, well, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
For working on that for us.
I want to address the lighting for Nova Park. They're done with the fencing, but when do they start the lighting?
That's a great point.
It's been approved already.
Exactly. It's an item that has been approved. What I can do, so we don't have to wait until November 4th, which is our next council meeting, I will have our Public Works Department, which is tasked with overseeing that project, give me a report so I can convey it to the council.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any future agenda items?
Mr. Figueroa has an update for us on the Gutierrez Park swimming pool.
Okay.
I think he has an update for us.
At this point right now, we have a plan in place to address that issue. So we understand it's something that has to get addressed. We are working to properly address the issue. Right now, our public works staff is doing a diligent work and making sure that we work with everybody that's involved to make sure that we resolve this. My expectation is that, again, by the November 4th meeting, I will have specific facts that can probably provide a better picture as we are right now in the face of making sure that we address all the needs that we have concerning that issue.
Thank you. Mr. Ray, do you have anything?
The other comment is that elections is November 3rd. It's going to be before we have our meeting. I just telling everybody that don't forget to vote. We'll appreciate it, and just don't forget, November 3rd is the last day.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to add that I've never come across in all the years of people campaigning and either for county, school board, or whatever, the extent of what individuals are currently doing. They're stealing signs, and now they're actually writing on political posters and adding comments about the individual. And that's just vandalizing a political poster, and they're putting their feelings on out there. It's just not, I've never seen that. I've never seen that people would attack other people by actually spray painting and writing comments on a political poster. I've experienced people taking and cutting off my posters and taking a 4x8 with plywood and 2x4s. I said, ¿Cómo se puede? You needed a truck or something. But anyway, it's never been to this extent and to this level. I don't know what to say. It's not Calexico that I know of.
Same thing, I was gonna mention that also, that as we come near the closure of this election season, let's just remind ourselves that this is the opportunity for us to exercise that right and to exercise our, choice as to who we want our leaders to be and to represent us. But at the same time, let's be respectful and mindful of each other. We all are trying to help. We do this because that's what we want to do. No one is, forcing us, but also let's just make sure that we keep it civil and we keep it, within the rules of good behavior and decorum. I invite all, all the citizens to come out. You're getting your, ballots, mailed out to your homes. Some of you, just like me, I haven't gotten mine, but I keep on tracking my ballot. So once you get it, do it as soon as possible. There's a box outside of City Hall, that you can come and drop it off from Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, and if you go to the counties from 7 to 7, all the way to November the 2nd. And then, on November the 3rd, it will be just regular times, and you can go to any polling station, wherever you're scheduled to go and show up. But please, do it early. Por favor, vamos a ser civilizados, vamos a ser respetuosos. Todos queremos el beneficio de nuestra ciudad, todos queremos hacer lo mejor por nuestra ciudad, y eso incluye respetándonos. Los candidatos que están en la contienda, los candidatos que decidieron estar en esto, todo lo hacemos porque queremos hacer esto voluntarios, porque queremos hacer la diferencia. Sí, queremos expresarnos, pero hay manera de expresarlos, hay manera de ser respetuosos. Hay que hacer eso. Hay que salir temprano. Ya tenemos nuestras boletas, algunos, como yo, bueno, estoy esperando por la mía, pero hay manera de mantener revisar dónde está tu boleta, ¿verdad? A través de Track My Ballot, do a search. I forgot the whole address. But anyway, so go out, salgan temprano en todos los city halls, incluyendo aquí en de Calexico. Está abierto de lunes a viernes de 8 a 5 de la tarde. Y en el condado de Imperial está también otro lugar donde pueden llevar sus boletas. Eso está abierto de 7 a 7 de la noche hasta noviembre 2. Y en noviembre 3, que es el día de la elección, va a ser todo regular, de 7 a 8 de la noche, en todos los lugares donde están, pueden dejar sus boletas donde están, que sea su lugar para ir a votar. Entonces, de nuevo, los invito a esta es su oportunidad de ejercer su voto, ejercer su voz. Muchas gracias y suerte.
Yeah. Every time we vote, and it's such a right and a privilege that we do so, is important. But media, citizens, and political pundits are saying that this particular election is probably the most significant one since the turn of the Civil War during Lincoln, for whatever reasons. So I deeply implore you to take your time, have a plan to vote, but vote. Every vote counts, and especially during this election. So please, ladies and gentlemen, vote. If we don't be active in our democracy, then it can fade away. It can be taken away from us increment by increment, little by little. We must be vigilant, and part of being vigilant is to vote. So please vote. Now, if you say this has already been done, then that's good. But for a future agenda item, I would like to see us lock the alley gates downtown. Make sure they're locked and the trash bins locked in order to help keep the alleys clean. If that's already been done, then that's great.
There is an ordinance for the trash bin to lock.
Yeah. I'm also recommending an update report on our new alarm system for businesses. It's been a while. I don't know where we're at with that. According to Chief Geraldo is going to generate some good revenue, and he's been taking the lead on that issue. Okay? That's it for me.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And,
Yeah.
good
Meeting
night.
is adjourned.
Have a
That's it.
good evening,
Okay.
Good.
and good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dodgers are losing, I think.